Today we'll run through 5 tips to avoid the career failure mode when your employer comes and says, why should I pay for you when I can buy a generative AI subscription for 100 times cheaper? The value of labor is a fleeting thing. You know, I used to generate FEA renderings, finite element analysis renderings for customers, and it blew them away. But now any kid with a computer can make an FEA rendering. And because that service is no longer scarce, its economic value has plummeted. And so if I had all of my eggs in that one skill basket, then my labor value would have plummeted along with it. So it's good to diversify your skill set, just like it's good to diversify the creatures in your garden for a healthy ecosystem. Because things change. What was valuable 10 years ago is not valuable today. And what is valuable today may not be valuable 5 years from now. You know, in the Industrial Revolution, low-level physical labor was replaced with machinery, and folks retreated into the mental professions. And today, mental labor is being replaced with machinery, algorithms. Probably the single biggest complaint I hear from industry professionals regarding our recent mechanical engineering graduates, but this applies to other engineering professions too, is that these young engineers come in and they don't know how to work with their hands. And this is a trend. I was talking with a hydraulic mechanic the other day, and he said the pendulum of labor value is swinging from the hands-off engineer to the hands-on tradesman. So the engineer who can be hands-on is the successful engineer in the economy of the future. It's important for an engineer to feel the differences in strength and ductility of different metals, and it's important for an engineer to realize how heavy things are. And the only way we can expose ourselves to that and increase our labor value is through experience and hands-on learning. In academia, we call that experiential learning. For students, I encourage you to find an engineering internship off the mainstream serving your neighbors. And if there's not a position, then create one. Talk with folks. Not all businesses are going to actively solicit for an engineering intern if they might hire one. Good labor is really, really hard to find. And so if you approach a business and are that proactive and say, here I am, I love what you're doing, this is what I can do, how can I serve you? Then that business would be crazy not to consider you. This is resilience. My dad would say that an engineering education teaches you how to solve problems. It doesn't necessarily set you up for a specific job. So I encourage you to get to know your neighbors, the local businesses and organizations around you. What are their skills? What are their needs? How can you serve them? I also encourage you, mechanical engineers in particular, to talk with your local machinists and learn to speak their language. You know, in my area, the vast majority of machinists and small farmers use the imperial standard system. But if you're referencing global scale educational materials, it may prefer the metric system, which is also a wonderful system. But if you want to maximize your labor value, find out what your neighbors are actually using and become an expert in that system. Is it preferable to you if engineers design in metric or standard when you get parts?
I prefer standard.
Prefer standard? Okay. And so how does it change your job when you get a metric part?
All of our tools are calibrated for what do you call the imperial system, the English system. You have to change the gearing and the drives on the lathes to be able to cut metric thread.
And so all the dials and controls are tuned and calibrated for the imperial standard system.
Yes.
Fundamentally, you want to be competent so that you can be secure. You want a high labor value so that you can be free enough to say no to your employer if they ask you to do something that you know is not right. You want a high labor value so that your career can afford you the freedom to be there emotionally as well as monetarily for your family. Free enough to be resilient, free enough to design not just for the economic return for your employer, but design for the sustainability of your land and community. And I wanted to end by bringing Mark Kell back, and he's a biological ecological engineering grad. He runs his own company, helps out small farmers. Such a great example for us. And I like the way he puts it. He says that
all I can do is what feels like it works best for me and for my community and the places where I live.
And where you live should guide the types of technologies that you develop and implement.
We need more what I would call appropriate technology, appropriate scale technology, producing more of what we need closer to home, we bring connections between people back into local economies, and that provides both more of our needs locally, more resilience against disruption in the global systems, but also a lot more meaning in people's lives.